This is Dr. Lam welcoming you to our discussion on the top 10 adrenal fatigue facts made easy. Adrenal fatigue is a state of suboptimum health applied to a collection of non-specific symptoms such as weakness, low energy that is hard to explain. Most adults in one time or another has experienced adrenal fatigue in various forms, but most of them are not aware because they can go undetected. Most fatigue are mild with full recovery after rest. Emotional as well as physical stress has been cited as the most common denominator in adrenal fatigue. But because of the lack of conventional medicine understanding and knowledge, there's a lot of myth and misinformation exists about adrenal fatigue. If the condition is left to its natural progression and the stresses were not removed, then with age and time, adrenal fatigue tend to get worse. Fortunately, the body has a built-in mechanism for self-healing, and it can recover most of the time, even if it is severely damaged, if it is given the right natural tools. The symptoms of adrenal fatigue are wide and varied. They can include insomnia, anxiety, low blood pressure, muscle pain, multiple chemical sensitivities, food allergies, low energy, insomnia, PMS, sluggishness, heart palpitations, salt craving, and hypoglycemia, just to mention a few. Generally speaking, the milder the form, the less the symptoms. However, there is a logical explanation for each of these symptoms, and it's very important to understand the physiological basis of these symptoms because they reflect the body's way of dealing with a state of high energy output beyond what it's capable of delivering. So these symptoms reflect the body's strategy of returning to a lower physiological state of function to conserve energy, to return to a simple state of function in a very complex world that most of us got ourselves into. Do not be surprised that many of the conventional healthcare practitioners are not familiar with these symptoms and their implications. But it's important for us to know because the best strategy for recovery starts with taking control of your own health and understanding how the adrenal fatigue symptoms and how the conditions they are related to becomes important. Our current understanding of adrenal fatigue is really in its infancy, even though it has been around for a long time, due to the lack of research. Now, there are 4 stages of adrenal fatigue that we are currently classifying into. Stage 1 is called alarm reaction. This is where the body first is aware of a physiological demand on the system and is drawing upon its reserves. Stage 2 is called resistance response, and the body start to get tired when the stress is too much. In both stages, the symptoms are quite mild and often escape detection. Most people, in fact, in these 2 stages are asymptomatic unless the stresses are really bad. Stage 3 is called adrenal exhaustion, and this is a wake-up call for most people when they visit their doctor. There are 4 phases within Stage 3, and each has different characteristics. Phase A is called chronic single-system dysfunction, and here, one or more internal system has weakened to a point that symptoms becomes pathologically and clinically evident. Phase B is called multiple endocrine and axis imbalance, and in this phase, you have multiple hormone regulating organs are concurrently involved. Phase C is called disequilibrium, and this is where the most functional decline happens when the internal system of the emergency repair are activated and the body is flooded in the sea of adrenaline that is mediated by the sympathetic nervous system. Phase D is called near failure, and most people here are typically bedridden. Now, knowing what stage you are in is important because the recovery options differ from each stage. Just what works for one stage may actually backfire if not properly used for another stage. Many of the convoluted and confusing symptoms of adrenal fatigue are hormone-related, especially for the female. In particular, in the female, the ovarian adrenal thyroid hormonal axis are usually involved. In the male, the adrenal thyroid axis are involved. In the female, you can have PMS, low body temperature, endometriosis, PCOS, fibrocystic breast disease, fibroids, and even cancer in extreme cases. In male, it has the low libido and fatigue are the main symptoms. Estrogen dominance, secondary hypothyroidism, as well as adrenal exhaustion symptoms are all very prevalent as part of the overall hormonal axis imbalance in both the male and the female. The common approach by conventional medicine is to suppress these symptoms and to increase outflow, but they may give a temporary relief, but often is a failed strategy over a long time. It is important to recognize these hormonal axes because a recovery program must try to rebalance these axes in order to be successful. Now, some people can have adrenal fatigue with very little stress, while other people can experience tremendous stress and still have no problem. The body's biological constitution or body type is an important determinant when it comes to expression of adrenal fatigue. And everybody is unique. So it's very important for you to know what kind of body that you have. And from there, it can be a good predictor not only of the adrenal fatigue intensity, but also recovery potential. Adrenal fatigue crashes are real and very, very unpleasant. It has been said that if you don't have adrenal crash, you really not have adrenal fatigue. And it's quite true in the sense that the recovery process is never a smooth ride, but often have a lot of roadblocks. Adrenal crash is really the body's way to further conserve energy quickly by down-regulating the internal function. It is the way the body demands to return to a low energy state so it can conserve as much as it has for basic survival. So it's very important that if you have adrenal fatigue, you must be educated on how to identify crash, how to manage crash, and how to facilitate recovery after you have a crash, because that's unavoidable. And there are many ways you can do it naturally and quite simply, and the body will allow you to do that if you know and understand the science. Proper nutritional support as well as a dietary program is very, very critical. One of the most common recovery mistakes is the improper use of nutritional supplementation. Herbs and glandulars are common culprits because they may be overused or misused. While they can be useful for certain stages, their use indiscriminately can make things worse. Hormones such as thyroid and also steroid medication must be monitored closely because they can be quite devastating as well if not properly used. Okay, blindly taking a large cocktail of nutritional supplement can worsen adrenal fatigue over time. Again, it's a common mistake. So it's very important that you know what the common pitfalls are of adrenal recovery and avoid them. One of the important recovery tools is a good exercise program because while the body is in the state of recovering, you don't want the body to get too lax. You want to rebuild from the cellular structure all the way from the internal out. And it starts with breathing properly with the adrenal breathing exercises, then advance to adrenal restorative exercises, and then further into a series of adrenal yoga exercises where you work on the tone, work on the strength, work on the power, work on the fluidity, and the control. So over time, not only at the cellular level that the body is able to rejuvenate, but at the same time on the outward basis you get stronger as you return to normalcy. Improper exercise, overdoing exercise that's not matching the body's capability is a failure and oftentimes can trigger adrenal crash. And so the proper exercise program along with a proper diet is very, very important. Traditional blood tests, unfortunately, are not very helpful when it comes to adrenal fatigue. Even saliva hormonal testing, if it is not done on a serial basis and not properly interpreted and correlated with the clinical picture, can be more confusing and not helpful because we are still in the early stages of these tests and they have to be clinically looked at and related to the clinical condition for it to be really making good sense. Fortunately, you don't really have to depend on them because there are simple and insightful qualitative challenges you can do at home to assess adrenal function with great insight. Because of poorly understood physiological pathway and our lack of research, the key to complete recovery in terms of adrenal fatigue really lies in finding an experienced professional with thorough knowledge of medicine, endocrinology, psychiatry, cardiology, etc. A total mind-body recovery approach is best, incorporating a customized program of diet, lifestyle adjustment, nutritional supplementation, and exercise. All of them has to match the body's need during the entire recovery process because some people may need more and less during a different time period. Now, for most people with adrenal fatigue, a 3 to 12 month recovery period under normal circumstances and under expert guidance should be expected. In severe cases, it may be more. I hope this presentation has been helpful to you to understand how adrenal fatigue is. This whole article is available free of charge at my website, www.drlam.com. You can go to this free public educational website. You can ask me questions there. And if you need personalized attention, you can call my office.